The old left-right divide is breaking down a little bit. The left-right divide is not some permanent, eternal sort of way to understand politics. The left-right divide only comes about during the French Revolution, and it refers to people who were sitting on the left, and they were the radicals and the revolutionaries, and people who were sitting on the right, they were the more conservative elements. They wanted to preserve the monarchy. They wanted to preserve hierarchy and social order. So the way that we use left and right, it can kind of change, and circumstances change, and the parties change too. And there's some issues that bring this up. So there was recently a poll out from a left-leaning poll source that shows that most people reject gender ideology, specifically with regard to girls' sports. Most people do not think that men should be able to compete in girls' track meets and win their prizes and win their scholarships. How is this the issue that unifies people? Because if you think of all the big issues facing the country, most people, if you were just thinking about it for 2 seconds, you'd say, oh, girls' sports, I don't know, that's way, way down on the list. That barely matters at all. Except it represents so much of the rot that is at the heart of our entire politics. The reason that the transgender issue has been able to kind of crack up some of the left-wing consensus and has aroused the passions of conservatives is not because we particularly care about women's sports. I don't know that I've ever watched women's sports. Maybe if the Olympics are on, I'll see something, but very rarely. It's because it's so unjust, and it's so obviously unjust, and it is so out of whack with reality. When you see some big hulking dude running circles around the little girls running on the track court, you just know, oh, this isn't right. Well, and then some egghead, liberal will say, well, no, but actually the way that the hormones in the body and the way that this and the science shows, and you just say like, no, sorry, you can give me whatever egghead, ridiculous, cockamamie explanation you want. I just know that's not right because you have all these very advanced social theories that you are combining with your social scientific theories to give me some explanation of why Husky Hank over there should be allowed to compete against all those little girls. But I have two eyes, and I just know it's wrong. And I notice that the guys keep winning all the games. So it would seem that my two eyes are more reliable than your ridiculous theories. Among this, the people surveyed, 59% support a ban of, and the wording here is key, a ban of biological males from competing against biological girls in female athletics. 46% of women support a ban, so it's lower, but 34% oppose a ban, so far greater percentage support the ban. Among Republicans, it's about 3-1. Democrats, 40% support a ban, 42% oppose a ban. So Democrats, identified Democrats, are the only people who slightly more oppose the ban. Independents, though, it's overwhelming. 49% support the ban, 33% oppose. Gen Z is about evenly split on this because they've been steeped in gender theory and because they're young and don't know what they're talking about yet. Millennials, who are often considered more liberal, more to the left in many ways than Gen Z, overwhelmingly support the ban. Baby boomers, roughly around the same percentage. Actually, they're a little less likely to support the ban than millennials. So these numbers, changing by generation, but that might change as people get older too. I also want to focus in here on the wording of the coverage here. So the coverage is referring to biological males and biological girls. I understand why people do that. I know a lot of conservatives who do that too, but I think it's a bad idea. I think it is mistaken. I think it is giving in to political correctness. There is no such thing as a biological male as distinct from a spiritual male or a psychological male. There were just males. There's just dudes, okay? And the reason people use this term biological male is they want to be very, very precise, and they want to make these arguments from biology, and they want to say that actually it's the physicality of the person, and the physicality is somehow different than the soul or the spirit. And that is the transgender argument. When you say the phrase biological male, you are making the transgender argument. The transgender argument is that there is a difference between one's biology and one's other identity. And the transgender people say that this other identity, this metaphysical identity, that's my true identity, and my body has nothing to do with it. But when the right comes out and says biological males or biological girls, they're just making the flip side of that argument. They're saying, yeah, there's a difference between your biological identity and your other kind of identity, your spiritual identity, whatever you want to call it, but your true identity is your biological identity. But the actual conservative argument is that we are not split between our soul and our body. They're not completely separate entities. We are one entity. The technical term for this is hylomorphic beings. Right? The body and the soul are fused, where they're inseparable on Earth. And so when you divide it up, even if you're dividing it up to argue with the left on the transgender question, you're actually giving them their argument. This is, hate to plug my book 2 times in a show, but this actually is kind of the argument here. This is what we do all the time on the right. Is even when we think we're fighting against the left, when we think we're fighting against political correctness and wokeism and cancel culture, we're just giving in. We're just giving in a sort of different way that we're not even conscious of. We really ought to stop doing that, because I do think we're in a moment of real political chaos, and chaos breeds opportunity. There are things that are shifting here. If you got the majority of people see with their own 2 eyes, oh my gosh, wow, look how crazy this is. This left-wing ideology on gender is so nuts. What else is nuts about their ideas? This is a good opportunity to grab it, but we're not going to win that by acquiescing and giving in on an issue that is overwhelmingly in our favor, because it's so clear. What this comes from is, this minor, relatively trivial issue of the girls' sports comes from this broader issue, which is that we no longer want to admit that some things are normal and some things are abnormal. There are norms, there are standards. Even on the right, we don't want to admit that. We want to say, well, you do whatever you want. You pursue your own appetites and desires. You be free, as though that's really what freedom is. It's not even close to freedom. It's not what the founders thought freedom was. It's not what any sophisticated people have thought freedom is in our history. But it comes down to norms. It comes down to standards. Are you allowed to say, this is normal, this is not? I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Michael Knowles Show. To check out the full episode, hit the link in the description or download The Michael Knowles Show wherever you listen to podcasts.